true liberty and true peace are not possible without monetary reform. And the reason I say that is because it's the Federal Reserve that allows the U.S. government to do what it does in the world today. This has been happening since its charter in 1913. It's the Federal Reserve that allows the government to be severed from economic reality. Without the Federal Reserve, the government would have to always ask the question, how will we pay for this? Where will the money come from? If it wanted to fight a $1 trillion war, where will we get the money? How will it be paid for? But now, with the Federal Reserve, the government doesn't have to ask that question. It doesn't have to have the money to do what it does. Just as in 1694, when the Bank of England was chartered and unleashed the British Empire on the world, the Federal Reserve has unleashed this one. And it's severed the American government from the requirement of asking, how will things be paid for? And it's unleashed the government to ultimate power. And so in effect, the federal government is responsible for the wars that we fight. It's quite clear that it is. Without the Federal Reserve, these things would not be possible. So that's why I say peace is not possible without monetary reform. Now, if you take our economy today and the things that are happening today, the Federal Reserve views the correction as the problem, as does the U.S. government. Like a drug addict who says, I'm in pain, withdrawal causes pain. So the pain becomes the problem, and the only solution is to do more and more drugs, ever increasing in volume. Whereas in reality, the pain is simply the correction that the person has to go through to get back to a normal life. In our society today, the correction that we're seeing is viewed as the problem. This correction, of course, is caused by the Federal Reserve printing more and more fiat dollars. So the answer to the problem is to print more fiat dollars. And with each case, it gets worse and worse. So once again, we find ourselves in a situation where the correction, for 95 years, the Federal Reserve has inflated our currency so that now hardly anything is priced the way it should be. The stock market, even gold and silver, they're all trying to find their real price in the economy now. Things are trying to return to the mean. The market is trying to work. But the government and the Federal Reserve won't allow that to happen. They don't want any real wealth to change hands. So what they're doing is using our resources and that of our children and grandchildren and future generations to prop up an indefensible status quo, to keep the system the same as it is. The one thing that absolutely has to happen for this system today is that the people who caused it have to maintain their privilege, power, and dominance over the system. Nothing else is even considered. One of the things that we learned as we campaigned across the country for the last 6 months is that our media on a national scale, along with the politicians, have secrets that they keep from us. These secrets are things like the Federal Reserve, fiat money, fractional reserve banking, even the Constitution. Who knows what these things are? And some honest discussion across the board is in order. But it can't happen because these are taboo subjects. It's one of the reasons why third parties become so important, because they're not taboo subject to us. It's one of the reasons why Ron Paul is the greatest statesman of our day, because they're not taboo subjects to him either. But people are not listening right now in large enough numbers, but soon they will be. So what should the government do right now to address these problems? The first thing our government should do is stop using our resources to try to defend an indefensible status quo. The second thing the government should do is make an announcement that the 95 years of central banking and fractional reserve banking and fiat currency is a failure, and that the Federal Reserve is going to go away, to cease its existence. And then finally, to announce that we're going to return to the Constitution and to a sound money system. Sound money would do so many things for us that we might not even consider. We could have real peace if we had sound money. And the other thing is, sound money would even help the environment. I don't know if you've ever thought about that, but many of the things that the environmentalists complain about, and justly so sometimes, all the suburban sprawl that we see, the destruction of the habitat of wildlife, things of that nature, would not be possible without the Federal Reserve. That sounds weird, but if we had a sound money system, this out-of-control growth that has to get bigger and bigger and bigger in order to fund the system would not be possible, because it would all have to be paid for with real money. And real money quite often is hard to come by. So what should we do as people? We've said what the government should do. What should we do? Well, we have to realize that we're dealing with a corrupt system that has to be changed, and that without change in that system, I'm talking about real change, not just a word, the other things that we desire are not going to be possible. And the real question comes down to this: is this revolution going to be peaceful or not? Are we going to peacefully transition into a new era of peace, prosperity, and liberty?
Nonviolent, non-cooperation.
Or is this system going to devolve into violence, chaos, and disintegration? Those two things are both possible as I see it, and time will tell what happens. But I'll leave you with this final thought: if you hate war, end the Fed.
Yeah!
If you hate tyranny, end the Fed.
Yeah!
If you love liberty, end the Fed.
Yeah!
If you love peace, end the Fed.
End the Fed!
And finally, as I leave you, I'll tell you that in this time, as we start this revolution, this is a start. Let it not be said that we did nothing.
Yeah.